In 2012, the United States experiences an economic collapse, leading to a surge in unemployment and escalating crime rates. Faced with an overwhelmed prison system, private corporations take control of correctional facilities, turning them into profit-driven ventures. Terminal Island Penitentiary capitalizes on this chaos by live streaming cage fights on the internet, where prisoners engage in deadly combat, becoming a sensation. However, the audience's interest wanes, prompting the creation of the death race. This new show features inmates racing in specially modified cars, with the victor earning their freedom. In the current race, only 2 cars remain, one driven by the masked inmate Frankenstein and his navigator Case, and the other by Frank's long-standing rival, Machine Gun Joe. As they approach the finish line, both are determined to do whatever it takes to win. Strangely, the weapons in Frank's car are malfunctioning. Thinking on his feet, Frank improvises by deploying the car's rear shield, striking Joe and gaining a momentary advantage. Despite this setback, Joe remains undeterred and retains the offensive upper hand. Recognizing Joe's relentless pursuit, Case believes they are facing inevitable destruction and expresses a desire to bow out. However, Frank is determined not to let Joe emerge victorious. Consequently, Case ejects herself from the car just as Frank crosses the finish line. Simultaneously, Joe shoots the car, resulting in Frank's triumph but also causing it to explode. Some days later, Jensen Ames, an industrial worker and former convict, discovers that the steel mill where he works is shutting down, and the workers are not receiving their full owed payments. As tensions escalate among the workers, anti-riot police intervene, resorting to violence even at the slightest provocation. Witnessing his colleagues being harmed prompts Jensen to join the conflict and retaliate against the police. By the time he returns home, night has fallen. After greeting his wife, Jensen checks on his baby upstairs, oblivious to a masked intruder taking advantage of the situation to enter the house and murder his wife. Upon Jensen's return to the kitchen, the assailant knocks him unconscious, places the murder weapon in his hand, and departs, making a shooting gesture with a gloved hand. Jensen regains consciousness moments later to find the police arresting him for his wife's murder. After half a year, Jensen is transferred to Terminal Island Prison, where guard Ulrich, upon his arrival, subjects him to freezing water and allows another officer to strike him. He is then placed in a cell with 3 fellow inmates aiming to attack him. When Ulrich returns to relish in Jensen's predicament, he finds that Jensen, skilled in combat, has subdued all his cellmates. The following morning, Jensen heads to the chow hall for breakfast, drawing the attention of Coach, Gunner, and Lists. Lists recognizes Jensen as a former record-breaking driver whose career came to an end. The atmosphere turns tense when Pachenko and his associate provoke Jensen by spitting on his food and accusing him of being a woman killer and child abuser. Jensen retaliates by attacking Pachenko but is quickly halted by the officers. Subsequently, Jensen is brought to Claire Hennessy, the prison warden, who, aware of his driving prowess, offers him a proposition. She wants him to assume the role of the new Frankenstein. The original Frankenstein perished on the operating table after his last race, a fact yet unknown to others. This opens up an opportunity for anyone to take on the mantle under the iconic mask. Frank held a special place in the hearts of the audience, serving as an inspirational legend. This is precisely why Hennessy is adamant about concealing his death from the world. She is determined to uphold the legend's image and revive the dwindling ratings since Frank's demise. According to the rules, winning 5 races guarantees freedom, and since Frankenstein had already secured 4 victories, Jensen only needs 1 more. Although Jensen remains uncertain about risking his life for this endeavor, Hennessy resorts to threatening him with solitary confinement if he refuses, ensuring he cannot disclose her secret. Left with no alternative, Jensen reluctantly agrees. Subsequently, he is escorted to the prison's auto shop, where he meets Coach and his team, responsible for maintaining Frankenstein's car and instructing Jensen on the basics. Each team operates independently with its own pit, and cooperation is non-existent. Additionally, within a concealed workshop, Hennessy has been working on a secret project for a month. Only a select few, including Jensen's team and a handful of guards, will be privy to the fact that he is the new Frankenstein, given Hennessy's absolute control over the prison. Coach then reveals the car Jensen will be driving, a modified Mustang V8 Fastback. The car boasts an array of defensive and offensive features, but ammunition is withheld until race day to prevent prisoners from attempting escape. Despite these precautions, escaping is virtually impossible as the prison is situated on an island, with the sole exit being a bridge susceptible to swift police intervention via cars and helicopters at the slightest hint of a breakout. Once Jensen becomes familiar with the car, discussions with the team continue in the prison's backyard. The race comprises 3 stages, with the initial 2 focusing on eliminating as many opponents as possible. In the third stage, speed becomes paramount to reach the finish line. Each driver is accompanied by a navigator, typically female and sourced from the women's facility. An exception is made for Joe, who opts for a fellow team member as a navigator, given his rapid turnover of female navigators, which unsettles the audience. Lists proceeds to enlighten Jensen about the notable drivers sharing the yard with them. This includes 14K, a Triad member and MIT graduate, Hector Grimm, an avowed psychopath loyal to Hennessy, Slovo Pachenko, the Aryan Brotherhood leader in the prison, and Travis Colt, a disgraced ex-NASCAR superstar. Their conversation is abruptly disrupted when Joe and his team approach, hurling insults at Jensen and sending a message that the race is a showdown solely between them. Meanwhile, a van arrives, transporting inmates returning from work duty. Jensen observes something peculiar on their wrists: GPS tracking bracelets. This realization dawns on him as the man who killed his wife was also wearing one. On the day of the initial race stage, Jensen is provided with Frank's attire, mask, and even his ring. His mere presence succeeds in recapturing the lost audience for the show. Coach advises him to maintain silence with fellow drivers, a trait integral to Frank's mystique. However, Jensen is permitted to remove his mask inside the car since the windows are mirrored, and Case is privy to the secret. As preparations unfold, Jensen inquires about Case's incarceration. She confesses to killing a cop for being an abusive husband. Shortly after, the race commences, and as weapons remain inactive until the second of 3 laps, the outset is less violent, though drivers still attempt to jostle one another off the track. Leveraging Case's familiarity with the area, Jensen easily engages in a head-to-head competition with Joe at the forefront. With Case's guidance, he seizes the opportunity to overtake Joe and claim the lead, utilizing a shortcut she points out. At this juncture, Hennessy activates the shield and weapons, represented by ground-level manholes that drivers must traverse with all 4 wheels to engage their car gadgets. The track quickly descends into chaos with open gunfire. Hennessy escalates the danger by activating the death heads, resulting in Grimm causing the demise of a minor driver and Joe falling behind due to an oil attack. However, Joe's race takes a fatal turn when 14K propels him off the track with a missile, leading to Joe running over 14K. Simultaneously, Jensen manages to activate his weapons, but a malfunction occurs with the machine gun. To rectify the issue, Case climbs onto the car's hood, becoming the target of the other's bullets. Jensen's adept maneuvering allows him to evade. Colt's vehicle takes a hit, and as it's doused in napalm, Case hurls the car's lighter, setting it ablaze and removing him from the race. With Colt out, Jensen faces off against Joe once more, but Pachenko's sudden appearance, mimicking the gesture of the man who killed Jensen's wife, distracts him. Joe seizes the opportunity, shoving Jensen's car back, securing his last place finish as Pachenko claims first. 3 drivers perish, leaving 6 for the next stage. Post-race, Coach and his team inspect the car, finding the gadgets functional, yet the mystery lingers on why they failed when needed. Jensen confronts Hennessy, revealing he won't race further, suspecting Pachenko's involvement in his wife's death and a plot to replace him as Frankenstein. Hennessy neither confirms nor denies but reveals a photo of Jensen's daughter in foster care, urging him to comply for a chance to reunite. Helpless, Jensen returns to the yard, discussing the missing number on Coach's attire. Coach clarifies he's technically no longer a prisoner, having qualified for parole 3 years ago, yet he couldn't bring himself to leave. The transformed world didn't appeal to him as much as the familiar races did. Doubting Jensen's involvement in his wife's death, Coach expresses his belief. Later that evening, while tinkering with the car, Jensen spots Pachenko and decides to tail him to his pit, only to be captured by Pachenko's team. After enduring a few punches, Pachenko attempts a head-smashing assault, indifferent to Hennessy's protection. Lists intervenes, stabbing Pachenko with a pen, allowing Jensen to retaliate and incapacitate his captors. Pursuing Pachenko, Jensen subjects him to a beating, forcing a confession that Hennessy orchestrated his wife's murder, with Ulrich facilitating his involvement. As Jensen prepares for revenge, Ulrich arrives with another guard, halting the confrontation. The following day, just before the second stage of the race, Pachenko taunts Jensen with the same provocative hand gesture. Unfazed by the provocation, Jensen deliberately slows down and takes a tunnel to have a private conversation with Case. Suspecting foul play and Frank's demise due to the recurring malfunction of the car's gadgets, Jensen threatens to eject her from the car unless she provides answers. Case confesses to sabotaging Frank's rear weapons in exchange for freedom from Hennessy. While unintentional, Frank's death resulted from his determination to win without weapons. Hennessy's motive was to ensure Jensen's continued imprisonment, racing for public entertainment. With the revelation, Jensen accelerates, rejoining the race and temporarily disregarding Joe. His focus shifts to Pachenko. After unsuccessful attempts to force each other off the track, Jensen surprises everyone by opting for the weapon's manhole instead of defense. Confounding expectations, he abruptly turns the car around, firing at Pachenko while driving backward. Inflicting sufficient damage, Jensen turns back around, deploys smoke, and forces Pachenko to crash into a concrete barrier. Jensen halts his car, steps out, and advances toward Pachenko with the intention of revenge by breaking his neck for the murder of his wife. Simultaneously, as Joe decides to switch navigators mid-race, Hennessy seizes the opportunity to unleash her long-planned creation, Dreadnought, a formidable multi-weapon tanker truck. This powerhouse swiftly catches up, eliminating 2 minor competitors instantly. Being under the Warden's control grants Dreadnought access to buildings, allowing it to take a shortcut and lead the race. Dreadnought systematically eliminates 14K's navigator, using chains to seize the car and unleashing a barrage of gunfire until it erupts in flames. With only Jensen and Joe remaining, facing such a formidable foe requires a strategic approach. Jensen, connecting with lists, establishes communication with Joe, and they agree to collaborate. Flanking the monstrous truck, they skillfully evade incoming attacks. When a trapped manhole surfaces ahead, both drivers hit it precisely with 2 wheels each, triggering the mechanism that causes the trap to emerge, leading Dreadnought to crash into it. The second leg of the race concludes, leaving Jensen and Joe as the sole drivers advancing to the third stage. Later that evening, Joe casually notes the resemblance of Jensen's voice to Frank's but refrains from pressing for explanations. Meanwhile, Ulrich and Hennessy determine the need to eliminate Jensen, fearing that the Frankenstein mask could find a new wearer in the future. On the following day, just before the race kicks off, Ulrich plants a bomb beneath Jensen's car while Hennessy engages in a distracting speech about the significance of racing in their lives. When she mentions the possibility of winning freedom with a 5th victory, Jensen grasps the rigged nature of past races, preventing anyone from achieving this milestone. Coach, hearing Jensen's realization, reveals a crucial detail in a video of Grimm's death. Inspired, Jensen devises a plan, urging List to add a half-gallon reserve tank to his car. He then approaches Joe, seeking collaboration once again. While Jensen changes into Frank's attire, Hennessy visits to hand him release papers and extend a unique offer. If he triumphs, she proposes he remains in prison, continuing as Frankenstein since she believes the track is where he belongs. Questioning his parenting capabilities, she argues that an ex-convict wouldn't provide a good life for his daughter, framing this choice as a selfless act of love. Jensen refrains from giving an answer, tucking the release papers into his pocket as he heads to the race. Once in his car, Case reveals that Hennessy also approached her, instructing her to impede Jensen if he nears victory. Unperturbed, Jensen enters the race. At the race's commencement, Ulrich manipulates the manholes, activating them only when Joe passes over. Joe opens fire at Jensen, severely damaging his rear shield, prompting Jensen to discard it. However, Joe adeptly evades the move, having learned from Frank's previous actions. Hennessy triggers a defensive manhole for Jensen to use, aiming to maintain viewer interest, but Joe obliterates it with a rocket. With more rockets in tow, Joe launches them all at Jensen, who skillfully evades, allowing them to collide with a wall. The weakened wall, the same one present when Grimm met his demise, becomes the target for Jensen and Joe's coordinated attacks today. Their strategic rocket strikes on the vulnerable spot result in a final blow, creating an opening that facilitates their prison escape. Enraged, Hennessy terminates the stream, deploys all available police units, and activates the bomb detonator, but to her dismay, Coach and his team had previously removed and deactivated the bomb. Making it to the bridge, Jensen and Joe face approaching police cars. To thwart pursuit, Jensen executes the next phase of the plan, releasing an additional half-gallon reserve tank that collides with the trailing cars, triggering a fiery explosion that acts as a barrier. Both fugitives successfully breach the bridge gates, taking separate roads. Jensen becomes the primary focus for helicopters, while Joe, driving away, gains Case's cooperation for the final part of the plan, as she owes it to Frank, and Hennessy has already provided her with release papers, ensuring her freedom. As they pass by construction cranes, Jensen discreetly exits the car, concealing himself in their shadows. Case seamlessly takes his place behind the wheel, driving a few more miles until helicopters halt her progress with a wall of fire. Stepping out with hands raised, she's clad in Frank's clothes and mask, capitalizing on the identity exchange. Unaware of this switch, the authorities arrest her, returning her to prison while allowing Jensen to slip away and rendezvous with Joe. Together, they board a freight train. Back at the prison offices, Ulrich notes skyrocketing ratings and receives congratulatory gifts. Hennessy opens a gift box, revealing the bomb Ulrich planted under Jensen's car, triggering an explosion that claims both their lives. On the track, Coach is seen pressing the detonator. Fast forward 6 months, Joe and Jensen have forged a new life in Santa Rosalia, Mexico. Operating their auto shop together, they have custody of Jensen's daughter. Case visits after her release papers are processed, bringing a racing car for them to inspect. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.